Welcome back to the Alchemical Life podcast. This is your host, Abigail, speaking. I am a strength and performance coach. I am interested in all things human movement. I've worked with athletes from 9 to almost 90, or I've worked with people from 9 to 90. And I have been working with people from all different backgrounds, whether it's just Gen Pop, wanting to move better, wanting to feel good, to guys who are currently playing in the NFL right now, volleyball players, soccer players, softball players, basketball players, but I specialize now in endurance athletes. It's what I'm really passionate about, and it's where my nerd brain likes to nerd out the hardest, is just human movement, breaking it down and keeping runners specifically just at a lower risk. I guess I hate saying lower risk of injury, but just trying to mitigate any kind of potential overuse injuries across time, creating more longevity in sport, and obviously improving performance. That is the ultimate goal. So, that being said, if you're interested in any of those kinds of things and topics surrounding that kind of stuff, which is feeling good and improving your performance, stick around, because today I'm going to talk about 6 common myths that I have experienced that runners have had around strength training, why people think strength training absolutely sucks. I'm going to try and convince you guys otherwise. And so, first I'm going to pay the dues: like, subscribe, comment. If you are watching this video, if you are not watching, if you're listening to me, then please leave a review. Hopefully it's 5 stars, but if not, just leave a review. That's fine. And below will be all of my information. So if you want to reach out to me and ask me any specific questions, especially once you get to the end of this podcast, please do so. I love chatting with you guys. I also have my Strength for Runners programs linked below that you can purchase. They have the entire program, a full video log for everything, sets, reps, a modification list so you can scale up or down depending on the exercise, and a full cueing log so that you get an extended cut video of me demoing common mistakes I see my clients go through and how to fix them. So you essentially have a personal trainer in your pocket, all for $50. There's 3 different programs, so it fits every archetype of runner. And if you have any questions about which program is the best for you, also reach out to me. If you are unsure, then just stick around. Keep listening to this podcast. Keep listening to the episodes, and maybe you'll be interested once we are through with this. But now that I'm done paying the dues, let's get into it. So if you are somebody who is new to running and you're looking to build endurance without pain, if you're a seasoned runner that's looking to build volume and mileage, or if you're just or if you're also a seasoned runner looking to improve power speed, maybe you're just a runner who wants to have you just want to have longevity, you want to be able to do it forever, then this is definitely a podcast you want to stick around for, because strength training is something that you'll want to incorporate. But I think I want to also change your mindset on what strength training is and how it should look in your specific programming for running. A lot of people have dealt with, or a lot of people have come to me, you oftentimes come in discouraged. Their season has been interrupted. Potentially they're not even running anymore. They feel as though they're just capped. They've got this governor on their ability to progress, and they want to find that next gear, and more running doesn't seem to be doing it for them. So they come to me, either pissed, hurt, discouraged, whatever, and they're just like, SOS, please help me. And I really do think that oftentimes with runners, because this is the last place that they go, I think that strength training is the solution. But I also think that there is a specific way in which that runners can strength train to benefit them. And I think oftentimes runners come to me having worked with a coach where they are just extremely bored with the programming, didn't have success with it. Potentially the coach got actually made any kind of overuse injuries or pains worse. They felt worse. They felt that their runs got worse from the coach that they worked with. And so some common things that I have heard, or that I come across whenever I talk with these athletes who have worked with me for a while, and they're like, hey, these are my hesitations upon coming into the gym, was one, that strength training makes you really bulky. Which is something that a lot of runners are extremely scared of, because the bulky thing makes you potentially slower, or can impede with your running mechanics, which is another reason why strength training might be a bad idea, because if you strength train a certain way, then it can mess up with your running mechanics. It can make you really sore, which can mess up with your running mechanics. The programs are just boring. They're cookie cutter. You get hurt doing any kind of lifting, or maybe you have a really bad experience with lifting or a coach that you've worked with. And then there's just not enough time. And also the last thing, one of the biggest things, which is just like so frustrating because I think it's the biggest fallacy, is there it doesn't have a direct positive correlation to improved performance. And we're going to hammer into every single one of these today. This is a part of a seminar that I have given. This is part of a seminar that I'll continue to give. So I'm going to give a very summarized, concise version of it. I will likely, whenever I give this seminar again, have somebody film it, and I'd like to upload it to the YouTube channel. So whenever, just be on the lookout for the next time I give a seminar. It'll be this same topic, but it'll be me actually interacting with an audience of people and going on a little bit more in depth about all of these topics rather than just sort of bullet pointing it. But I wanted to, in this episode, hammer in some common barriers to entry for strength training with runners, and where I think that the lies exist in these fallacies, and also where the truths are. Just quickly going into it so that I don't keep you guys here for too long today. But the first problem, the first myth, and we'll just get right into it, is that it is going to make you bulky, that strength training is going to make you bulky. The bulk from muscle comes from years of rigorous strength training, a lot of food, and then also sometimes drugs. So when you see those people that are extremely, extremely bulky, super, super muscular, you think, okay, oh my God, lifting is going to make me do that. One, it's so funny because a lot of lifters actually get offended. They're like, do you know how hard I've worked, how many years I've worked to get this amount of muscle mass? And you think that you're just going to acquire it overnight. The bulk of the muscle, like getting extremely muscular, does take years and years and years. I've been a dedicated lifter for almost 10 years now, and I would say that I'm very muscular for a runner, but I still am pretty dang lean for somebody who has lifted for that long. So as someone who has spent almost a decade of my life trying to gain a significant amount of muscle, I can personally say it is not that easy to do. So there's that. Also, nutrition is a huge factor. So if you continue to eat in a way that promotes. Oh, okay. Hold on. Sorry, you guys. My my microphone went out on me. Oh Lord. Okay, I think we're good. I think we're okay. All right. Hopefully this is good. I might have just switched mics. We'll see, but hopefully this is all right. So, anyways, food is also nutritional. Nutrition is another huge factor. So, like, the big part of gaining muscle is also the way that you eat. And oftentimes that big bulky look comes from a lot of muscle, but also a lot of fat that's been deposited onto the body. And that is all through nutritional interventions. One, how much the runner is running. It's going to be really hard to get that bulky look because you're just burning so many calories in your run. You have such high mileage per week. But two, also, if you continue eating in a way that's just, conducive of proper recovery, good training, but also not in excess, then you're going to be just fine. You're not going to get bulky. Also, drugs are a huge intervention that people will utilize. That's that very like bulky, veiny, kind of super, super manly, very, very muscular look. That's often not a natural. Those did not come about through natural means. Those we had some pharmacological interventions that occurred there. So with the right diet and programming, and proper strength training, you actually will find that you look leaner, you're healthier, and oftentimes you feel better, because we are not just thinking about strength training from the perspective of even just improved performance in the sense of we want to run better, getting better mechanics, which we'll cover later, but also bone mineral density, quality of life long term. So the next myth is that it's going to reduce or make worse your running mechanics. And actually, with the right program, strength training is going to improve running mechanics, right? Because when we're strength training properly, we're working on creating stability, and then we're also working on expressing the skill of strength. So we're working on generating stability around the rib cage and the pelvis. So creating stability in our core, in our adductors, in our hips, in the muscles around the hips, in our quads. In our chest, in our shoulders, all this stuff we're working on improving function, muscle function, and then generating strength from that stability that we've then created. And then we can express that strength through things like our running, through, heavier loads, through power-based exercises, that kind of thing. We want to make sure that there is stability though around those things, and it's going to allow for the upper and lower extremities to move just very much more synergistically with one another. And so when you go into that chaotic environment, which I consider running, I consider the training environment actually the safe environment, right? Because this is where all the motor learning takes place. In that safe environment, we can create stability. In that chaotic environment, which is running when you're under fatigue, longer durations, that kind of thing, higher degrees of stress, your body will be better suited to handle the training volume that you need it to do. So, problem two is mechanics, and that is with the right strength training, actually, mechanics should get better, not worse. The other myth is that, right, the programs are just boring or cookie cutter, and actually, this is where I think that the myth has some weight to it. It's not necessarily a myth. I think there are a lot of programs out there that are quite cookie cutter and quite boring, and oftentimes I see these in association with those apps that help you, like the Couch to 5K or those AI-based training apps, which do not necessarily program badly for the running or triathlete, like the runner or triathlete. The actual conditioning program is not bad. It's pretty good, especially for like a generic program. But oftentimes the strength that they give is just that much more generic, and it's usually trying to throw in some little extra value, which is like, oh, here's also some strength training programs, and it doesn't actually throw in any value. It's not great. I wish that they wouldn't include those things because oftentimes those programs are just not well written. They do they make the strength they give strength training a bad reputation, and they do end up becoming somewhat, I don't want to say a waste of time, but they're just not well thought out at all, and they can be at best not very helpful or very minimally helpful, and at worst they can actually do worse and create undue excess volume and potentially make worse any kind of injuries that the client or you guys listening are experiencing. So strength should not be a second thought. It should be thought of even more meticulously, because any bit of added training volume to the training week needs to be essential to improving performance long term. As runners, as endurance athletes, you guys are already accumulating so much volume or mileage during your week, and so any kind of extra volume needs to really be well thought out. And if you are just throwing in strength training as some kind of, oh, here's some sets of this and some reps of that, then you are just adding in extra volume without any extra thought, and that could be bad. So it makes sense why you wouldn't want to add any kind of strength training, because it's just like, well, if I don't know what to do, then I'm not going to mess up what I have, which makes sense. But if you work with the right coach or you purchase the right program, then these programs will include movements that train muscle function. They're centered around resilience for sport rather than just general strength, and they're going to more closely mimic the sport as the race draws closer and as you're getting into season. And so those are all things that should be considered whenever it comes to good programming. But if you have a good program and if you have a good coach, then those things are taken care of, and actually they should be enjoyable and beneficial, and they should have weight to them. And number 4, I love that we're zooming through this, so this actually is not going to be too long of an episode, which I like, is that oftentimes people are like, I'm going to get hurt, or I have gotten hurt. I've had a bad previous experience. And one, if you have gotten hurt, it's definitely not a myth, because you getting hurt is a real thing. That's real. I don't want to discredit that. But the myth of I'm going to get hurt if I do strength training is just, it's a sad one to see, because it has been real for some people. But I think why I want to consider it a myth is because although some coaches have detrimentally affected other coaches' reputations, if you're working with the right one, then you should not be hurt at all. You should feel way better. You should be improving in all metrics in terms of overall training performance. So when you're getting hurt while training, if you're doing it by yourself, these are things to consider. Maybe even if you're working with a coach, these are just things to look out for. Is look at program design. You want to look at what kind of program you're doing and how they're organizing the sets, reps, and exercises. You want to look at overall volume. You want to look at technique, and then you want to make sure that when you are lifting is considered as well. I'm going to go through these a little bit more in depth without delving too deeply into this, because I could make each one of these honestly an episode in and of itself. But program design. So you want to make sure that there are exercises that are improving overall function and not just necessarily general strength exercises. So you might have some basic strength movements toward the beginning of the program, like a pull up or a squat variation or a hinge variation, so like an RDL, or you might have, some kind of deadlift variation, like a trap bar or regular deadlift. You might have a push variation, so an overhead press, that kind of thing. Those would be, you'd want to see them closer to the beginning of the lift, a little bit lower in repetition. Those are things where we're going to try and work on expressing the skill of the movement. Ideally, the coach, if they're prescribing this, knows that you have the skill, the capability of doing these things. If you can't do those things, those might not be included in your training program, and that's okay. As the program continues, you'll have things that we like to call potentially like an accessory lift, which might be a main lift for some running clientele that come in to see me, which would be a unilateral variation, maybe a split squat, maybe there's an isometric in there, maybe we're doing some kind of unilateral hinge variation like a single leg RDL. You could be doing a hinge variation but a little bit lower load, so like a dumbbell RDL instead of a barbell RDL. A pull variation like a single arm pull down or a single arm dumbbell row or a chest supported row. You might be doing something like a dead bug alternating press or a bridge press or a regular dumbbell bench press. You might be doing something like a core exercise, so where you're adding in rotation, like a cable rotation variation, or you might be doing something where you're training anti-rotation but still working the core, like a plank drag, or you might be doing some kind of frontal plane core variation like a side bend. So these are, I know that I'm just like throwing out a bunch of exercises to you, but you want to see things like that where it's a main lift, some accessory lifts, maybe some core stuff, and then that's kind of it. Oftentimes when I have clients come into me, if they're really, really injured or they're coming right return to sport, then the main lift is usually what was once the main lift is now more drills and just sensory work. So I'm working on creating feedback to the foot or the hip or whatever we might need to. So a lot of the times the beginning of the lift might look more like just drills, so some kind of single leg glute bridge or some kind of foot movement or training foot pressure, things like that. But that's what I want you to be looking out for, is program design. And then you want to look at volume. How many exercises are you doing? How many exercises are they having you do 10, 12 exercises? It might be a lot. It might be that they're having you do an obscene amount of repetitions, which is oftentimes a red flag in a program. They might be having you do, an obscene amount of sets of everything, which also is usually a red flag in a program. If you're going, 4 or 5 sets of all exercises, that's quite a lot. And then technique, how is the coach watching you perform the exercise? How are you performing the exercise? Because oftentimes it's not what the exercise is, it's how you do it. And so that's extremely important. That's why I have videos for all of my stuff. And then when are you doing the strength training session? So I oftentimes do not like having my clients do any kind of hard endurance training right before or after a lift. I like to separate it with a meal and a few hours, but I do like to stack intensity. So if you have a hard run, then do it in the morning, before. Get some calories in you, rest a little bit, and then hit your training session. And that's oftentimes how I like to do it. But definitely with some rest and a meal in between. I often do not like to see my clients come in right after they run. If you're working with a coach too, those are all things to be mindful of, obviously. But things to look out for before you even work with a coach would be, vet the coach before. What is their experience level? How many years have they been coaching? What kind of clientele do they coach? Do they work with? What are their certifications? What is their educational background? Do they just seem passionate about what they do, or are they not? What is the reputation they have amongst your peers? Do you have any kind of clients or any friends that, hey, I work with this coach and I love them and they've helped me a lot. So, what is their reputation in the industry in and of itself? And then, do they have any experience in the sport you compete in? Have they worked with a lot of running clients before? Do they do any kind of endurance training themselves? Obviously, if they're an endurance athlete, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a good strength coach, but it does help if they do have some experience in that realm at all. And as we move into problem number 5, this is the one that I most commonly see an issue with, and it's time. I don't have enough time, which does make sense because you guys are doing so much training volume throughout the week, and I know that life gets busy and it is tough, but time is just not something that I'm willing to say should be an excuse, because you'll have all the time in the world if you're injured, and you'll be just begging and wishing that you could go back in time and have done some of those drills that maybe you were supposed to do that you didn't do, that are now keeping you from the sport that you love. So, you know, strength training doesn't have to take a long time. It can be something, I call them sprinkle sessions. You can add them in at the end of your training at the very least, and do some drills and some body weight stuff and some very light work at the end of, a run. And it can take you anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, and that's it. You can also do, a lot of my clients come in 3 times a week for 30 minutes, and that's all that they do. They get an hour and a half of strength in their week, and it's pretty good, and it's sufficient, and it's keeping them not just feeling good, but also moving really well and performing at high levels. So I think the right coach will understand how valuable your time is. They'll make the most of it, and when you see the value in strength training, you'll understand that it is worth putting aside some time for. So just time is one of those things where it's like, we'll always have time for the things that we care about, and you have to care about strength training enough to do it. And so hopefully hopefully I'm helping convince you that it's definitely worth your time. But myth number 6 is kind of the most potent one. Sorry, I had to get a sip of water. Is the most potent one, and it's the one that I feel the most passionately about, and also the one that I think convinces the most people, like, oh yeah, hey, I think strength training maybe is something that I should start incorporating, which is like, I just can't see how it helps. It doesn't have a direct positive correlation to improved performance, and that is just not true. Strength training requires motor learning, and so improving functional strength and stability, it allows the body to train in a way that teaches the body better ways to move, and unlock these new positions that help safeguard you from injury. So you have, with strength training, you have less compensatory patterns. You're in getting exposure to all different ranges of motion. You are creating stability around certain areas that may not have had access to that before. And so, although it may not be direct in your eyes or in your mind, it does actually directly improve performance, because all of those things are going to directly help you run better. When you have increased adaptation or increased resiliency in training in a safe, controlled environment, which I do consider the training room, then you're going to have an increased ability to handle stress in the sport and in life, which is this chaotic environment. Oh my God, my throat is like so dry all of a sudden. I'm sorry, you guys. But if you can handle higher training volumes, and you can do it, and in a way where your body is better handling the volume, then you're going to, one, do better in your runs. You're going to be able to handle more training volume, so you can have longer runs or more frequent ones or more quality runs. And then also your body's going to be feeling better, because you'll have improved tendon health. I know that's kind of a buzzword, but I think that it's actually fitting for this. Your overall, your musculotendinous system is just going to be, musculotendinous system is not the right word. These musculotendinous units are going to be operating at a higher level, because when you're doing proper strength training, isometrics, plyometrics, that kind of stuff, your body is going to be absorbing and producing and handling the force more efficiently, and it won't all be going to your bones, ligaments. Oh my God, I'm like so dry in my throat. I'm so sorry, you guys. It'll be actually going to, your muscle will be able to offset some of that because your muscles will be stronger. Also, the more muscle you have, you're going to be living healthier for longer. Hard to race if you're dead. So, in a study, it was a meta-analysis done. They found that strength training reduced sports injuries to less than 1/3, and overuse injuries could be almost halved. So, if we see a direct positive correlation to improve performance, because one, we're just going to extend the lifespan of the runner by potentially mitigating injury risk. This is going to particularly help with athletes that are subject to overuse injuries, so things like stress fractures, shin splints, tendinopathy. These are the things that I see all runners come in to me for, and then also acute injuries like muscle strains, muscle aches. Like this is the runner injury. Obviously, there are some very, there are some more rare occasions in which you see someone experience something quite drastic, like a full tendon tear or, really, really bad stress fractures, things of that nature. But more commonly, this is what, or sorry, not stress fractures, an actual fracture, like an actual bone break. But more commonly, I'm seeing these kinds of overuse or acute injuries. So, strength training is going to help with improving stability. You're going to have better biomechanics. When you move better, your body's going to absorb and produce force more efficiently. So, you're going to be able to avoid or mitigate those injury risks. You're going to be able to handle greater training volumes for longer. You're going to have obviously more strength. When you can express the skill of strength better, you're also going to be able to produce more power. So you're going to be able to push harder in your training sessions with less effort. You'll have a larger engine to work off of. And then you're going to have better tendon resilience. You're going to have better tendon stiffness. You're going to have higher elastic capabilities. And this is all going to improve performance and give you less interrupted seasons. So those are the most common myths I see in strength training. Hopefully I've busted all of them for you, or I've explained some of them for you. I wish I could keep going, but I really need to drink some water or something. I think I'm dying. So if you have any further questions on any of those topics, let me know. If you just have questions for me in general, let me know. Again, like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening, leave a review. If you're interested in my programs, check them out. Talk to me about them. And be on the lookout for when I give another seminar where I go in depth on all of these things even more, and I'm really interacting with an audience. That being said, oh my God, I think I'm dying, and I will see you guys next week for another episode of The Alchemical